Hi, I'm Cheryl Livingston with AAC Innovations, and with me today is Laura Hayes, my partner in crime. But I want to talk to you today about an interview that Laura did with a ABA associate, and she's going to tell us more about what they got to talk about.
Yeah, we're gonna be interviewing Ryan Kennedy, who is an ABA associate. He's been with the district a very long time. But before we get into that, Cheryl, I really like your background today.
Thank you. I relocated, the other day. So yes, no, this could be permanent. I could see me sitting
Right?
just staring at this all day.
Would you call that a sunroom? What would we call that?
Yeah, no, that
It
would
looks
be
like
nice.
it's just nice. It's all pane open windows with
Yes.
this beautiful valley in the background.
Yes. I worked very hard to get this, setting for myself. And look at all the
Yeah,
books over here in this bookshelf, and yeah, no, it's
well
nice.
read.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I
So,
just decided to pack up and head
yeah,
I'm south. I was
yeah.
sick of the cold and
Laura's definitely looking for the ocean breeze.
oh man, I wish I had a different drink in my hand. Right now I'm drinking some coffee, which is my fun find this week. I had to take my car in to get some oil change. So I found this. I had heard about this coffee shop down off Manchester, kind of in my neck of the woods, but near 141 in Manchester, there's this great little coffee shop, and it's called More Than Coffee.
Is it the one that stands in the parking lot? It's a little
It is. It's
freestanding
a
round building.
Yep. It's a freestanding kiosk.
Mm-hmm.
And you would probably miss it because it's kind of in a strip mall, but I had heard good things about it. So I stopped there today, and it is ran by a lovely woman, and individuals with developmental disabilities.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. And so they offer breakfast and lunch.
Okay.
And she kind of, I told her it was my first time there, and she kind of gave me their backstory. So they've been around 13 years now.
Okay.
She has a son with a disability, and I want to say it's either a niece or a cousin, another family member who has Down syndrome.
Okay.
And so she supports and helps give job skills to individuals that have disabilities, and teaches them all kinds of things. She was saying how they were low on coffee, and so they were refilling 5-pound bags, and obviously working on money exchanges, and following recipes. They bake all their pastries, like they bake them
Okay.
home style.
Uh-huh.
And she said that over 90 people that she has employed at some point has gone on to gainful employment elsewhere.
Oh,
So
cool.
it's just such a great story. So I got myself a decaf white chocolate mocha. It is delicious. And they fill it up to the top too. It's very important. They're not going to skimp you. Not going to skimp you. I hate it when I get skimped. That's like my biggest thing. I'm like, where'd my coffee go?
That's the reason they put it in those white cups, so you really can't see for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I highly recommend it. Yeah.
Breakfast and lunch, like sandwiches and stuff?
Yes. So they've got hot
Okay.
sandwiches, and they've got bagels and pastries in the morning.
Wow.
And then they've got a sandwich menu for the lunch too. I looked it up. They have their website. So if you're interested, you can go to More Than Coffee. So it's MORETHAN coffee, COFFEE.net. And it talks about, they've also got a site on Facebook too, but it talks about the mission and where they're located. I believe it also has it has a menu there. It's got some, they do box lunch and catering too.
Oh, you could get it to go then and eat it later.
Yeah, it's got all kinds of things. It's got some videos. If you wanted to make a donation, you can do that there too. So I just was so excited about I got coffee, and I got this wonderful story about someone helping people in a very functional way.
For a long time. This isn't just something she just started. She's been at this a long time.
Yeah. So if you guys are out that way, or if you're needing, a box lunch for one of your events, feel free to think of them or reach out. All of their information is there on their website. But I definitely will be a return customer. My coffee was delicious.
I have to figure out a way to make sure when I'm out and about, I go that direction.
I know. That's what I told her. I said, I just don't come here that often. So, or I just, am not, or I go down, it's Manchester, right? We don't,
right.
Manchester's a busy road.
You're looking to the next light. Yeah.
Right. And it's, it's not there if you miss it. So I'm going to try to, if like on a Saturday morning or something, I'm just going to try to stop there and get some breakfast.
Good idea.
Yeah,
Okay.
something. So everything going okay in your neck of the woods?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I found out or I realized that I don't like silence, which maybe doesn't surprise a lot of people. But like at home, the TV's always on, whether or not anybody's watching it or not. It's just I like the background noise. So I have realized that I can do two things at once some days, where I'll listen to webinars and work at the same time. So I'm being productive, but I'm listening. And so this week I was listening to one that Gail Van Tatenhove had recorded, and I just love listening to her. She's just a little bit older than me, so I have to give up my world's oldest speech pathologist because she's about ready to retire, she said. But
I had not heard that.
oh yeah, no, and
Oh,
that's what she was saying, that she needs to be finding people to come, take over where she's gonna leave off. She's in Florida. But
yes.
just practical stuff. It's just, it makes such good sense that I always get good tips from her. So anytime you can, and you can just YouTube, Google, ask for Gail's stuff. She's got a lot of information recorded, a lot of conferences she's participated in. So there's a lot of stuff out there that I would highly recommend you do. So that's
Yeah.
one of my joys.
Everything she's got has got gems. Yeah, she's so great. I reached out to her one time to, she talks about kind of like pre-macking. We can talk about this in another episode, but she talks about like pre-macking some stories to help individuals that use devices. It help them communicate longer, bigger messages so that they are socially accepted and that they're able to talk and discuss remote events to other people, because it's such an important social convention that they don't always get because they're in the here and the now. So she's got some resources for that. So I had reached out to her, and she's just, like you said, everything she says is golden, and you just want to soak it up. So we're gonna have to have her, like, not archived, but we're gonna have to have her like cloned, I guess, maybe, like.
Well, and that's, yeah. So it's, again,
She can't
it's
retire.
like she can't retire. No. So is there a law that you can have passed that somebody? And again, it's like she can cut back on the number of hours she works, but she just can't
It's
not be
just
there.
the quality of it. Yeah.
I think she'll still be. I see her being a speaker at conferences and stuff
I hope so.
for years to come.
I
I think
really,
she
really
was
hope
retiring more from her daily kind of jobs. But anyway, no, she's great. She's the one that definitely made me so much more aware of descriptive teaching. And don't worry about the name of the thing. Talk about it. Tell us what it's all, how you would describe it, and use those core words. They were so powerful. And then that's what led me to wanting to do more with the News to You and sending out those flyers of, here's the words that they're emphasizing, but how would you talk about them with core words? So I give Gail credit for helping me see the light.
Right. And just, an example of descriptive teaching would be, for if you're in science class, are you going to talk about gases and liquids and, combustion and things like that? You could. Those are all very much topic specific words that a student or a user might not use again. But could you use core words like hot and cold and things go in? Right. Go up, go down, like wet, like more descriptive teaching, like you said, that could be used in so many other capacities, describing the word itself versus saying a very specific topic word.
And I think that's how we know more about what they understand, because they are describing it correctly, as opposed to just being able to parrot back the vocabulary word. And we have a tendency to be like, well, if you said evaporation, then that's it, you got it. It's like, well, that doesn't necessarily mean they understand it. They just know that that's what you were looking for. So right. I like to make sure we're helping people understand, not just say it.
Right. Oh man, so many topics. If we could have Gail on at some point, man, that would be a highlight. But for now, we have Ryan on, and Ryan has over 16 years of experience as well, and he has just some wonderful gems in this interview that we're about to do. So sit back, kick back, and here is the interview with Ryan Kennedy. So today on AAC Innovations, the podcast, we have with us Ryan Kennedy. Ryan Kennedy is a board-certified behavior analyst. He is working in SSD's Applied Behavior Analysis Division, And he first joined SSD as a paraprofessional and is now beginning his 16th year as an ABA associate. He's worked with students of all ages, from preschool to high school, and has trained hundreds of SSD staff on the foundations of ABA with his time and as a trainer in the department. He's currently working in Afton and Bayless, and we get the pleasure of working with him on those teams. And then when he is not working, he enjoys cooking, traveling, and filling his phone with his pictures of his Corgi Biscuit, which I just learned you had. So I've worked with you, 5 years now, and did not realize you had a Corgi.
Well, she just turned 6, so we're matching up the years pretty good here.
Yeah. Has she been fun to have around when you've been at home?
Yeah, she's been enjoying it.
Yeah. And now that you're back, is she missing out at all?
My wife stays home for work, so she still gets the same amount of attention, I think.
Spoiled. How'd you guys decide on a Corgi?
It's the first dog I've ever had, and honestly, I just had seen pictures and videos of them. They're very popular on the internet for doing goofy things, and I don't know, it just looked like a really funny, kind of cute dog to have, and they're just a blast. Really big personality, big dog in a small package is kind of the way people describe them a lot. So yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it had to do, because I know you guys both like to travel so much, and I didn't know if it stemmed from my one friend has one, but she loves London and England and Corgi, everything. So. Yep.
No, it was just kind of just the type of dog that we were looking for, I think.
Love it. Well, and so I also didn't realize about Biscuit, and I also didn't realize you've been with the district for 16 years. That's crazy.
Yep.
That's crazy.
So I started as a paraprofessional pretty much right out of college. It was just something I had some friends from school that had also been psychology majors and were kind of saying it was a good part-time job to have. And it was, I think, something that I was originally just looking to do for a short while to, while I sorted out grad school and things like that. And I was actually applying to go to film school was my original plan. So, and instead I ended up getting a position with the ABA department and sticking around ever since.
Man, maybe we need to tap into that hidden potential, though. Maybe we need to use your videography.
For the record, it was film and media studies, so it was more of I can analyze, I can break it down for you.
Okay. So you started with SSD 16 years ago. What area did you start in then?
I started in the ABA department as a paraprofessional.
Okay, and were you assigned to a specific building or district, or?
Oh my gosh!
Tell me about way back when.
Way back when it was a different world. So as a paraprofessional or ABA therapist is kind of what they called it then. You would often travel around buildings even as a para in the same day. So you'd go and you have one location in the morning. You'd be assigned not even to a classroom, but you'd be assigned to one or two particular students, and you'd have your 8 to 11 o'clock, and then you'd drive to another district a lot of times. So I would drive from Webster to Parkway in the same day, and then work the afternoon in Parkway and the morning in Webster.
So how many students did you have on your caseload then?
As a para?
Yeah.
Even as a para, my gosh, probably 4 different. I think I was in 4 different locations, and so probably 4 or 5 students. Wow. Just yeah. And
yeah. And were your sessions different, or were the minutes different? Tell me what that looked like. I'm assuming yes.
Yes. I mean, I think, the big difference is, back then things were a lot more separate, I would say, where, ABA services weren't necessarily as integrated or, combined as well with, the same types of goals that the classroom teacher, case manager, or speech path, whoever else was working on. So we'd kind of find ourselves working on different things than maybe they were working on. And as a paraprofessional back then, yeah, you would just kind of, you had your specific things that you were working on, kind of just for ABA. So I think that's been a big area of growth in the department. And this is back to, going back from 2004 when I first started. one of the big evolutions that I think we've done a lot better with is, collaborating with, all of the other, the other experts and specialists, and being able to make sure that when we are programming and, kind of developing curricula, that it's well aligned with what other people are working on, so that we see skills generalize, and we make sure that we're working on things that are meaningful and, and really that are going to, lead to the best overall improvement for the students that we work with.
Right. The ultimate goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Generalization, carryover, and success in all things.
Yeah.
So what's your history like with AAC then? What did it look like then? I mean, just with you and with the staff, right? So
yeah.
what did you notice?
So back then, I would say, I definitely didn't have, what passed for high tech back in, 2004, 2005, was very different than what we utilize these days. There were no iPads. There were no,
this was
tablets.
before 2011, folks. So
Yeah.
2011 was the birth of the iPad. As it seems like it's been around forever now that
I'm
we've
sure it's
had
like
it.
before and after in your world. Yeah. So this is definitely pre-iPad. So students that I worked with, if we had any kind of AAC, it was almost exclusively PECS based, so picture exchange. But I do remember other students that had some of those really early touchscreen devices, and they were just big, massive things. And the touchscreen, just the screen technology was so different from what you have on an iPad, where you really had to kind of press down on it, so they weren't quite as responsive.
We
remember
used
lots of Big Mac switches and things like that. You're kind of,
okay.
Some of those things that are still around. But
we used to call those big hunky ones paperweights, and then I was thinking about this, and I'm like, oh, I probably need to describe what a paperweight is, because we don't even use paperweights much anymore.
Well, and what was the one? This is where you're going to have to help me out. The one that has like the 4 switches together, and you can have the picture on top of it. Oh my gosh!
So like a tech
like
talk?
a Tech Talk 4 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, or a Partner 4. There's a Partner 4. There's a few different mid tech devices that.
Yeah. So that would be like that was the highest tech, I would say, that that I was kind of seeing utilized with any of the students that I worked with back then.
Well, and you mentioned PECS too. I'm curious how, like, the evolution of PECS, picture exchange communication systems. We talked about that in an earlier podcast, but it's been around a long time. The creators at Pyramid, Lori Frost, and Andy Bond, like they've been doing it a long time. But I'm curious what the training was like then, and if you felt like you had fully understood the systematic formula of PECS, or if you felt like, and sometimes we still struggle with this. Teams think they're doing PECS, but it's really that they're doing visual supports with a low-tech picture book. What
I will say, so
evolution?
that's a good question. So PECS, I think, is something that, for people, kind of with an ABA background, PECS is a communication system that we really latch onto, because, gosh, I'm trying to remember which of the 2 founders has behavior analytic background. It's either one or both of them, comes originally.
I think now they both do, but I think originally Lori was the SLP and Andy was ABA.
And Andy was I think you're right about that, Andy Bond. Yeah. So, that having that basis of it, that foundation, when it kind of comes to us and we're looking at it, it makes a lot of sense, because things are broken down so systematically. It's a whole task analysis of, a functional communication, really starting with, making sure that there's motivation and reinforcement in place. The fact that they have the specific prompting procedures, throughout, and that it looks at communication for, the different possible functions and the different possible reinforcement that, that it can produce. So I think that's something that I find really easy to kind of wrap my head around. The training back then, I don't know if it was very much different, other than the fact that I remember the VHS training cassette that we used. So this is, again, just a little bit lower.
So did you have to do that training on your own, though, or did?
No, I had a few special.
Okay.
Yep, district training, and it was great. So I remember doing that when I had a caseload with early childhood students, and so again, that's something that I think early childhood folks still lean into PECS an awful lot because it really does such a great job of establishing that communication partner relationship, which is so important. It connects a lot, the very first steps are based around communicating to meet wants and needs primarily, and that's
well, heck, we
good.
talked about it for almost 3 out of 6 kids today for our classroom, because the kids were at various levels, but across the board, the team was saying that they were either echolalic or not initiating. And the very first phase of PECS is initiation.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, I think, that the initiation component, the requirements at various stages for, even to kind of have some of that joint attention built in, that those are some things that as we, kind of get into, the other sort of areas of AAC that are more popular right now, the LAMP and the other stuff like that, I still look at PECS, even though the system can be more difficult to manage, because you've got to laminate and Velcro and have all this other kind of stuff. There are a lot of things that I really do prefer about PECS just because of, what it requires in terms of exchanging and that kind of communicative relationship.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head too, because it's a system, right? And we talk about joint attention and the communication partner aspect. And sometimes I think people put the emphasis on the technology and the tool itself. And really the end goal is that it's the exchange. It's the communication exchange between the partner and the individual. And so because PECS is so systematic in telling the communication partner what needs to be done, you can eliminate some of those other things. And it's easier to piecemeal out what's working and what we need to tweak. When the kids do similar things on devices that we may call stimming or not attending, we assume it's because the system is wrong versus what could we do as a communication partner to shift our support methods.
Yeah.
So as far as I know you're a big proponent of PECS, you mentioned Lamports for Life. Do you feel like with regards to functional communication, there has been a shift since technology has really kind of blown up? Have you seen that shift?
For sure. Yeah. I think just kind of, you're talking about before and after iPad, I think it's such an amazing device for the variety of uses that you can have for it. But if you, I do, I look at it and I think it's really easy to kind of get enamored with all the technology though. But again, just like you were saying, I think it's important to make sure that we're kind of teaching it the right way. And, in ABA, when we're talking about all behavior, we're often looking at, function of behavior. And when it comes to communication or verbal behavior, there's different functions for whatever language it is that we're talking about, and making sure that, we're teaching, that student to use the device in a way that is functional, whether it's to, to make requests, to meet wants and needs, or to, label or describe their environment or have social exchanges, looking at, what's kind of the, what's going to be the right way to utilize this system that, is making sure that they're getting the right functionality out of it at that moment.
Yeah. And I like, ABAs, my ABA friends all talk about functional communication. So for those how does ABA define functional communication for those who might not be as well versed in that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we can go all day here. So I'm going to try to give you the kind of the nutshell version.
The cliff notes.
Yeah, the cliff notes. One thing that we do is we look at, different, we call it verbal behavior. So of course, since we're the behavior people, language is language, but we like to have our terminology. So we talk about verbal behavior. And, the thing that I like about our definition of verbal behavior is that it incorporates, by definition, any of these behaviors that involve this kind of listener-speaker role. So, we're looking at whether it's sign language or picture exchange, any of those responses are all still considered verbal behavior in the same way that, us speaking vocally is. So we don't need to kind of change the definition to allow for, those alternative responses. But typically we're looking at defining, that language or that verbal behavior based on, whatever the effect of the function is that it produces for the speaker in relationship to the listener. So looking at what type of reinforcement you're getting for that language. It could be simply from the social aspect of it, that kind of social reinforcement, or it could be something, that's much more tangible and clear cut. Like if I say, hand me that pencil. Well, if you give me the pencil is the reinforcement for that request. So we like to look at what's the function of that language. What we find ourselves doing an awful lot with functional communication training is identifying challenging behaviors, trying to understand, if a student is acting out. Oftentimes it's because maybe they don't have the language to meet that need appropriately. So that's a big, part of our job, is looking at situations if we're seeing tantruming or, whatever the other behaviors are, trying to identify what is it that student's really looking for? Are they looking to get something, or are they looking to get out of something? Are they looking for, are they deprived of social interaction? Are we not interacting with the student enough, or interacting in the way that they prefer? Are they telling us that they're frustrated with a challenge that's too difficult, or simply that they need a break, or that they really want to play with that toy? So trying to understand, whatever the behaviors that we see, what the function of motivation behind that behavior is. And then this is where, the language and the AAC stuff comes into play, obviously, is giving the student the tools to request or ask for whatever it is that, that meets that need in a more appropriate way. So if we're looking at, behaviors that are signaling to us that the student doesn't want to participate in tasks, they want to get away from something that's non-preferred, well, then we want to give them the language to say, I need a break, or this is too hard, or request an alternative activity, things like that. So functional communication for us is a lot about making sure that, students have the tools to just to meet their wants and needs, because the more that those supports are there, I think that the fewer challenging behaviors that we see. But then also outside of, kind of that replacement behavior conversation, we also look at, the ways that we use language and verbal behavior for social interactions and for all the other meaningful ways, and making sure that, when we're looking at, how we're teaching those things, so that those are functional as well, because so much of what we do is maintained by that kind of social reinforcement.
So there's two things that you talked about that I want to hit on, and I want to come back to the first one, which is just that idea that you're constantly assessing those skills, right? And I would love for our listeners to know how we really look at that in depthly. I know a lot of them probably have at some point done some kind of functional behavioral assessment, but just kind of walking through your thoughts and from your eyes, what we're looking for when we're looking at some of those communication breakdowns and how to build up their skills. But the first thing that I wanted to kind of pick your brain about is when I've talked to my ABA friends, we often use a lot of jargon, both SLPs and ABAs. We like our jargon. And so breaking that down. And so one of the things you said was verbal behaviors. And when I've talked to them, I usually replace verbal behaviors in the speech world with symbolic expressive communication, because there's misnomers around verbal behavior because it says verbal, right? So people think, well, if they're echolalic or if they can repeat, then they don't need a device, or that's enough. And we were just talking about some kiddos that really are truly echolalic in a lot of capacities, and they're not getting the functional communication like we want. And how do we build that? So when we talk about it in the speech world, we're talking about true symbolic expressive communication that is on their own, which is the same thing. We just have different jargon for it.
Right.
And so can you talk a little bit about, what that can look like and where there may be misconception?
The jargon specifically in the
any
ABA
of the jargon, yeah. There's so much of it that we use.
So this is me trying to kind of like self-censor my own jargon and be careful about what I use, because we had, when we talk about verbal behavior, we have all these different, and this comes from kind of the original, the foundational research and B.F. Skinner and all this kind of stuff. And so the names that he came up with for the different types of verbal behavior that he wanted to, to look at. And so we talk about, one of them simply is just, we call it echoic. So, when you're talking about echolalia, that sort of describes this kind of problematic version of that, where, you're only repeating it, the things that other folks are saying. But, we talk about it just, kind of in and of itself, the ability to repeat a sound or a phrase or a word or whatever it is, that's something that, if I was trying to teach you, another language, I might just model the word and then you say it back. There's no other function for that behavior, in terms of, you're not asking for the thing that I'm telling you to say, you're just saying it. So we look at echoic, and that's one type of verbal behavior. But then we have, we call it demand, which is the request, tact, which is the label. So we have all these different, kind of subsets of verbal behavior, and each one has its own definition based, again, on function and also the circumstances under which you would, kind of typically see it. So whether there's a model present, or whether there's, it's elicited by, the presence of a stimulus in the environment versus a vocal stimulus or something like that. So we can get really in the weeds with that kind of stuff, unfortunately, perhaps sometimes a bit too much so. But yeah, I think, when we're talking about, echolalia and people who, students who, well, they can speak, does that mean that they're good to go and that they wouldn't benefit from something like PECS? Well, just like we were saying before, that communication partnership is kind of, such a big part of it. Making sure that, even just for something as simple as teaching a request. So let me think of an example. If we have a student where, we're working on asking for, them just to request preferred things, and maybe bubbles is a really preferred, activity for them. We've seen it before where, students will just walk around the room and just kind of say, bubbles, 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 I want bubbles, whatever it is. And it's important to realize that they need to ask a person for that. So, those kind of pop out requests, we want to make sure that that's not just, delayed echolalia, where they're just repeating things on their own down the line, but that they're saying it to a person, because a request isn't just something that you say in the air and then magically things appear. It's something that you have to make.
$1 million, please.
Yes. You need to, it only works if you say it to a person. So just saying the word and having that item appear, that's not an effective, communication exchange. That's not an effective command.
Well, and back to your point, the function behind it, right? Like, are they saying bubbles because they're labeling bubbles? Are they saying bubbles because they're asking for bubbles? Are they saying bubbles because they want the auditory feedback and it's self-pleasurable to say bubbles? Because it's kind of a fun word. So we, all those things could be the function behind it. So what is the true function, and how do we get to the meat of that? And that's where you're going with, you have to set up the contextual analytics of, okay, well, they said bubbles. Well, are they going to somebody? Are they going to the bubbles? Are they, are they looking for bubbles?
Yeah. And I think too, and that's something that we try to keep in mind when we're teaching as well. You can't teach somebody to ask for something that they don't want. So, that's why, a lot of times we might kind of say, okay, well, we're working on, what words we're going to teach, and today we're going to work on asking for bubbles. Well, the first and most important thing that we need to do is make sure that that's something that is motivating and reinforcing, because maybe you get them to say bubbles, but if they don't want the bubbles, that behavior hasn't been reinforced,
Right. And how much prompting do you have to do to get them to say bubbles? You can give them a maximum prompt and get them to say bubbles, but then they don't want it. So what did we teach them? We told them to repeat and ask for things that they don't want, when really in reality, we want them to ask for what they want when they want it, and don't ask when they don't want it.
Right. You got it. So I think, it's something that I'm always stressing with folks a lot of the times is, and this is good for, we were talking about correspondence checks with PECS exchanges earlier today. And, that preference assessment, before you start that session, whether it's pulling everything out of your kind of, your prize box or whatever it is, or if it's in the classroom, having a couple seconds to kind of follow that student around and let them sort of lead you to, whatever it is, that they're really going to be motivated for, or that they're into, not even that day, but at that particular moment. And then making sure that we're, looking for those signs of, of engagement or just preference, and we have lots of different ways that we can, take data on preference and, offer paired choices and all these kinds of other, things that we can do that are a little bit more formalized. But even before we get into that, hey, if you hold it out, are they reaching for it? If they're not, maybe they don't want it, so maybe that's not the word that we need to be working on teaching right now.
Yeah. Well, and my big thing too, when I go out to staff is that whole idea of the concept of the first one is free. So, with PECS, the first one is free, right? You build that, they call it the grandma effect, right? But they have a level of trust knowing that they're going to get something desirable when you're around. And the first one's always free. So they know what they're getting, because otherwise they don't know exactly what you're asking them to do. You wouldn't go to a foreign country and have people, look at you like, what are you going to say before you have the context of what you want to say in that environment. And the same thing goes with modeling too. I think sometimes people on devices, they set up a scenario for the kid to communicate, but they haven't said, this is what I want you to communicate. This is what we're working towards. Like, here's the word we're working on this week, and giving them an appropriate model of it in context of, yes, right now we're going to make the swing go, and modeling go first. They just jump in. I'm guilty of it too. I used to do it all the time. I would jump in on a page and then show what I wanted them to say with an object or with the context, but then I'd never modeled it first. And then of course the kid is struggling and I have to over prompt. And then what have I done? I've taught them that if I over prompt and they wait me out, then
well, and I think that the first one is free is just a great thing to remember, because also it goes back to this idea of, even if I knew and was able to, go up to somebody and ask for something, why would I ask you if I didn't already know that you were a person that was willing to give it to me, So if you've, pairing ourselves with reinforcers, making sure that, students know, what we have available. And, when we're talking about, kind of the initial stages of all this kind of stuff, it is, my goal is for it to be, if we're looking at a really intense 15 or 20-minute session where we're working on this kind of stuff, for it to be really fun and engaging and enjoyable for the student. So making sure that this is like, I want this to be the, the best 15 minutes of their day when we're really working on this kind of stuff, and that it's all your favorite things, and, that, all you have to do is just, tell us what you want and you can have it. And then we'll keep doing that.
Right. Because then it's rich. It's really rich in communication and language and learning. And heck, I'd want to do that if I'm engaged and I'm learning. And you're going to learn faster when you're engaged and you're excited to learn. There's so many studies on that, right? You talk about Skinner and looking at all of his principles really were on what our typical developing language and communication styles look at. And so when you think about how kids develop language, they explore, they babble, they request, right? They use gestures. They do all of these things that he has different terminology for, but he's basing it off of how we communicate and how we interact with one another. So I think that's always important to remember too, that, our principles that we use in both ABA and in speech pathology and communication and in the classroom, all of that stems from the research behind typical language development and what our goals for our students are. So welcome to our AAC Innovative Tip and Innovative Tool this week. I want to talk to you about a favorite game of my own, as well as a favorite game of many SLPs out there. And that game is called Cariboo. What's great about Cariboo is that it is a game that can be adapted for any ability, any age level, and any interest. So, and any system that you might have for AAC. And the purpose of the game is that you have rubber balls that are hiding in compartments, and you have this wonderful key that will open your compartments to try to find one of the missing balls. Once you find one of the missing rubber balls, you put them in the ball slot to get to a treasure, and there's 6 balls total. But you can see that there's 15 different slots that you might want to open. It comes with a beginner picture set, which includes these cards for shapes, colors, and I'm missing one, shapes, colors, and I think numbers 1 through, letters. So the student can pick a card and then find a matching color like yellow and open the yellow box and say things like, I got it, look, is it here, yes or no, and say, yes, it's here. And then you can also use core directives like ball, go in, put in, get it, get that key. So I can use words to direct partners. I can do turn taking, like my turn, your turn, open that, close that, not it. I can comment like, good job, bad, not here. You know, if you've already opened something, go again, or look there, don't look there. If you're trying to work on some positive and negative commenting, you can have them terminate an activity if they get bored by saying, stop, finished, no ball, all done, and asking questions like, where's the ball? You can also have them comment on the color because the balls are all different colors. So you can comment on that, or if they like the color that they got. I've had many kids throw the ball out of the game, so then you can comment on where the ball go, but they're rubber, so they don't hurt, which is great. But the other component that I like about this system is that it's not just one level. So it comes pre-templated with a beginner level, and then if you open up each slot, you can actually see that the cards pop out and they flip over to a more advanced slot. So you can flip them over. So if you have a user or student that's working on number identification, if they're working on more advanced letters, I'm trying to remember, there's 3 for each templated category, but you also have that available in the more advanced cards that you can use with the system. But then for our AAC users and for our students that might have really specific interest levels, you can also use their own and place your own cards. So yes, the other one is all of the different letters. So you've got letters here that you can target as well. But for our more advanced users, I'm just going to show you a few different examples. I'm going to pop up a picture on the screen of how I adapted my board using a few different symbol sets, as well as just different interest levels. So if your student is working, is at the high school level and really loves the movie Descendants, you can print those picture cards and you can put them in your device, and they can talk about, you can have them describe those individuals from the characters. You can have them name or match those, but still work on those same directives like open, get, more, don't like that picture, I don't like this guy, I think maybe Josh, can't quite remember, my Descendants trivia is failing me. SpongeBob characters, so Squidward, if they're really into SpongeBob, again, you can have those characters placed over here, and you can swap them out for your students. So I'll just pop up a quick picture of what that looks like for individual pictures on your board. And again, if you're using an AAC system, you can also have it be the symbols themselves. So if you're working on matching symbols or directives or verbs, if you're having them work on people, pronouns, it's really good to comment or to kind of combine things too. So I saw you want to open play. Okay, we want to open play this time. Or we want to open eat, or get, eat, open, eat. Those are all things that you can have them work on, just some 2-word combinations on their device, but still using whatever picture they've pulled from your deck. So you would make a copy of all the pictures that you have placed on your board, and then you would have them work on 1 or 2-word combinations, or even 3 words if they're at that level or beyond. And again, you can work on it with a variety of pragmatic functions like requesting, commenting, directing, terminating, protesting, etc. And You can use your phrase-based systems too. So again, your gameplay systems for turn taking, for asking questions, are all on those phrase-based platforms. So if you have questions, this is a super innovative tool. You can pretty much use it for anybody. I love it. It is a little harder to find, and it is expensive. If you were to just go to Amazon, you would find that it's very, very expensive because it's been discontinued. But you can get lucky, and you can find this at your resale shops and your vintage shops, your yard sales, like anything like that. Keep an eye out for Cariboo because it's really great. And you can also create your own. So if you really like this idea, you could take a cardboard box and you could create little slots and pictures and have them open. So kind of keep that in mind, adapt it for your needs, and we'll check you out next time.